Okay, this video is quotes. The first person we're going to quote is David Seabury. We're going in alphabetical order. It's from my book, Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes. Okay, first one he says is, he's a psychologist. Freedom comes from seeing the ignorance of your critics and the emptiness of their virtue. And so basically what that basically means to me is, the high-fat phonies criticize me. I laugh at them because they're in it for the business, for making money. And if you're going to make money, in the nutrition world, you pretty much got to sell stuff. You either got to sell your own supplements or you got to work for corporations to promote stuff. And because I just do it as a hobby, I don't have to sell or promote anything. And I like that because I realized this many years ago. I was like, the only guy who I couldn't catch was McDougall. Okay, McDougall really knows the nutrition literature and nutrition history well. Okay, but McDougall died, and I said, well, gee, so I could be second best while McDougall was alive. Now that he's dead, I can be the best. And there's other great guys, of course. Okay, like Selden and T. Colin Campbell. But in my opinion, they're kind of one-trick ponies, whereas I can go everywhere. And also, guys coming from an internal medicine, family practice background, to them, the ultimate in health is clean coronaries. But for me, it's way more complicated than that. It's high-functioning neurons. The brain's a lot more fussy than the heart. Anyways, next quote. He says, a little boy was asked how he learned to skate, and he said, by getting up every time he fell down. Okay, that's nice. All right, next one. Tell a man something is bad, and he's not at all sure he wants to give it up. Describe it as stupid, and he knows it's the better part of caution to listen. That's another thing, too. I just looked this quote about 5 minutes ago before I made this. I double-checked this guy for any good quotes. And I can tell you, that's one of the reasons why my gut feeling, because lots of people told me, you really shouldn't talk the way you do. You shouldn't say that most patients are fat, sick, and stupid. It's very rude. You're going to offend the patient. And I don't, say it to a patient who I don't know, you're fat, sick, and stupid to their face. But in my mind's eye, I often think that because it's true. My internal medicine doctor friends tell me, some of them tell me every single one of their patients over 60 is cognitively slow. And I got tons of people, including lots of relatives, that are fat, sick, and stupid after they got to 60 years of age. If you eat the high-fat diet, you plug up the arteries to your brain, plus you ingest all those things that are toxic to your brain, excitotoxins, etc. So, and neurotoxins, it's going to happen. And the reason why I'll go ahead and call it stupid is, like I said, I like the freedom of the internet because you can just say whatever the truth is. And, you might get shadow banned, you might get ignored, but at least you could say it. The truth is a fragile thing. I'm trying to keep it alive. Right now, the high-fat phonies are basically trying to take credit for the legacy of Kempner, McDougall, Esselstyn, Pritikin, Burkitt, etc., and claim it was with the high-fat phony diet, but it's completely ridiculous. The low-fat vegan diet's, between about 4 to 10% of calories from fat. That's what cured everything, all right? All this high-fat phony Mediterranean diet's a bunch of nonsense. It's about 40% of calories from fat. You're not going to cure very much with that. Okay, next guy is a philosopher named John Searle. He was an expert on the subject of consciousness. He was a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford. Anyways, he says, consciousness is irreducible. If you think you are conscious, you are. And that's, like Descartes, I think, therefore I am. Okay. Searle's next quote. If Descartes is correct about mind-body dualism, then how come my mind and my body are connected? I decide to move my arm and the darn thing moves. Okay. John Searle says, I will argue that in the literal sense, the programmed computer understands what the car and the adding machine understand. Exactly nothing. You do not understand your own tradition unless you can see it in relation to others. I would agree with that you should study other traditions a little bit. And what happens when you study and compare other traditions to Christianity, you realize other traditions, for the most part, they suck, okay? Look at the art of Christian art compared to other cultures and traditions. Their painting and sculpture stinks in comparison. Look at the music of Christianity compared to other cultures. In comparison, their music stinks. And musical notation was invented by the Christians. Polyphony was invented by the Christians. All the great classical music composers, they're Christians, okay? Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, Mozart, Handel, etc., okay? So there it is, okay? Where did science come from? It came from Christianity, from the Catholic Church. That's well known. Capitalism, the best economic system. It came from the Catholic Church. Okay, next thing he says, if you can't say something clearly, then you don't understand it yourself. Yeah, that's a good reason why it's good to discuss it with somebody else. See if you can make it clear to them. That's also the case why, like, whenever I get a good idea about, like, understanding the brain or the spine or some other part of the body, I'll often pick up the phone and call one of my doctor friends. and I'll discuss it with them, see if they agree or if I'm articulating it correctly, if I've got it all together. And I'm looking for them to give me some refutation. If they can refute it or not, then I know how solid it is. Is it worth writing a book about, a book chapter about? So it's fun to talk. You clarify things in your mind, you know. Okay, next is Pete Seeger. He's a folk singer, and he says, education is what you get when you read the fine print. Experience is what you get when you don't. Next quote, the first step in solving a problem is admitting there was a problem to be solved. Yeah, that's a key point. And it's actually a sign of high intelligence to understand there's not a problem. There is a problem. For example, if you talk to the average doctor, they think, well, atherosclerosis has already been studied. It's a problem with cholesterol. They never go beyond the fact to say, well, what kind of problem is it with cholesterol? LDL cholesterol overcomes the zeta potential, 6 red blood cells together. Atherosclerosis is a blood clot, okay? So a smarter mind takes it to a more fundamental level, and then they can solve the problem. But if you just are happy with a bogus, vague explanation, you never go anywhere. If you're happy with hypertension's 95% unknown cause essential, then you're never going to figure out that it's due primarily to eating high-fat diets, high-sodium diets. Okay, John Selden, he says, few men make themselves masters of the things they write or speak. Then his next quote, never tell your resolution first, or it becomes twice as onerous as of a duty. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like if you had an idea for writing a paper, writing a book chapter, writing a book, just do the project and then talk about it. If you talk about it in advance, then you get a double whammy because you feel as if you've completed it in a sense by talking it, and that can drop your energy level. And then now you feel you're obligated to do it, which makes it less fun. So it's best to keep it secret and get it done first. Anyways, I hope you found that helpful.